Hello, everyone, and welcome to our circle and Salve Women. First and foremost, I want to point out the orchid to my right. Yes, it looks like it's dead, but you know what? There's life in there. And I always have students throughout many years who have given me things, and I am so grateful for every one of them. A lot of them don't know, but I stick them, all the messages, and it's so insane how much you get by the end of the year that you smile upon. And then by the end of the year, I started to really put them in the those gallon Ziploc bags or so, those big freezer bags, and then you put them away, and then you put the years that are in there. And I don't know if I'll ever look back and reread them again, but it's there so that I know in my heart that I cherish them, just like my children's little tiny messages or so. Even the report cards are, the tiny little messages that they sent us. They don't realize that you put them in a way because you cherished it in your heart, and then it's just something that you feel like you just can't let go of. If there was to be a fire in the home, those are things that's like most precious to you. And it's the same thing in my classroom. So that right there, believe it or not, that family once again gave me another one. And I'm sure, of course, they don't know that one I have miserably failed to keep blooming. And I am not kidding you, the just new soil and everything, thinking that I was going to be this green thumb to make, and I didn't even realize, they gave me the second one. I was like, how do you guys get yours to keep blooming? They go, just water it. So I am just the one that's downstairs now by another part of sunlight. Once I open up these shades or these curtains, it's interesting because I'm looking at that one, and I talk to it and I go, thank you so much for blooming, because this one, it's going to go back to what it was, and I know it. But meanwhile, me trying too hard has almost gotten it to a point where it was definitely suffocating. I don't know what I was doing. I took off its roots and so forth that I was supposed to, thinking that, and I think I shocked it. So I wanted to say I'm grateful for all the many gifts that I've gotten throughout, whether it be a note or some plants. I kid you not, there are times where you just try too hard, and then all of a sudden you realize you could have just left it alone and just gave it a little water, and it would have been just fine. So this goes to the video with the resurrection of the dead you try to take down. And man, so when my husband and I, have, now that we're getting to this older age where now we're like, you know what, instead of buying this, instead of buying that, we could take some trips and so forth, and really invested in now putting in our health, for our emotions and our spirit. Things that in life made us reflect and made us realize, what, it's time to really embrace all of this in all the right direction, and not feeling like it was meant to take us down. It was really meant to wake us up. And so here we are. It's sometimes in the hotels where, because we don't watch TV at home, we movie binge at times, but for the most part, we're so busy, and that's always us doing other things, that when we get to be in the hotels, like, we use that time right before we go to bed to like turn on the TV and then check out what the rest of the world is up to. And so we saw this bar rescue story about a bar owner who really had a difficult time letting a bartender go. And if I recall, I think it was like the third time. It was already 3 times this person had been let go. And this one evening when they were being watched by someone who was helping them, trying to figure out what's going on in this bar, noticed that someone was quite detrimental to the business and giving, I could see that it was in the right mind and the right heart, but just not business savvy, of giving free drinks. And so then the owner had to really do the hard part, just while everyone was watching, to let this bartender go one more time. And I really could relate to that, because sometimes in life, and I'm sure that to humble myself, I'm sure that people have looked at me and said, oh, I can't have this person in my life. For whatever reason, I'm okay with understanding that there is that balance in life where sometimes it's like the UPS truck I've talked about with your memory and so forth. Sometimes you have to decide what is best for you to feel full and complete in life. And you may not be that missing puzzle. You may be that outlier. You may be that one that is not necessary, just throwing off the entire balance, and so you're not needed, and so all of a sudden you get taken out. And I realized for myself, sometimes when people would say blood is thicker than water, that would really, really get me, because it was always something that someone could do, and get into your heart and your mind, your body and spirit, make you feel guilty. And I always felt like, oh, if I just did this, if I did that, if I did this, then everything would be okay. And it got to a point where you gave so much that after a while, even though you weren't asking for anything in return, you felt depleted. And it's funny, because I truly believe that God's interventions are amazing. At first you're just like, oh, this is just temporary, this will work itself out, and then you're still trying to make amends, thinking that you could be doing things to fix whatever it is that you may think is wrong. And yet you come to terms that there's really nothing wrong. You can love people from a distance, and it is just not helping a person to really hold on to them, keep him in your life, if there's really nothing that you're doing for each other other than taking each other down. And that judgment and that just outlandish type of behavior, after a while, that gets to be very, just the criticisms and everything that you start to take in, it's like, oh, they're coming from the right place, and I'm supposed to be listening to this, and so forth. And it's hard, because criticism is a good thing, but to a point where, where's the criticism coming from? And I started to ask myself that. It's like, okay, I remember one of my college professors saying, would you ask a plumber for a doctor's advice? And, in my young self in the past, or actually it started off with, would you have a plumber, perform surgery on you? And I go, if they know what they were doing, why not? And so it's funny, because you're so quick to answer in the past, at least I was, of really thinking, what, if you entrust someone, if you felt like they had the knowledge to do so, why not? Why shouldn't they get paid? We had started talking about the plumber being paid for the same amount as a doctor, and so forth. And so we got into the knowledge, and of course, me being argumentative, I wanted to keep proving that, of course, why couldn't a plumber do the same thing as a doctor could do? And then it got to the point of expertise. It got to the point where the silence is what made me go home and really reflect and think, wait a minute. If they didn't have the knowledge, if they didn't have the training, I remember seeing people who were actually going to become a master mechanic. I didn't even know there was such things that existed. And when they started telling me all the components and the parts, the mechanisms of an engine, I was just, besides surprised of how many components there was to just an engine, or there were to an engine. And to me, that's fascinating, right? And so I really started to connect that with being a surgeon, and thinking, well, what was I thinking? Like, of course a plumber should be getting paid for what they're worth and their time and so forth, but how is that the same as a doctor who's also trained for their own expertise? And why would I ever trust a plumber unless I had to perform surgery on me, if I knew that there was a doctor who was trained for it? And so, that piece right there has, now growing up, has made me realize, here I am always trying to fix things, or thinking that things can be fixed, when sometimes you just realize that you're getting advice from the wrong people who have really nothing to do, and my husband and I had just discussion, like, do you want to be a person that when you retired or so, you're just going to be judging others. You're just going to be wasting time looking at what other people are doing in their lives that are, instead of helping people, instead of being productive and really continuing on. I mean, retirement means moving on to something else that you can now focus on and fine tune your expertise on. And so I've always thought to myself, well, I know I'm going to be helping out the world. I've been that way, and he and I have always had that agreement. And so we're excited about that next phase when the time comes. But it doesn't mean that we haven't done it already. It's just that now then we can like fine tune like what would be our focus after all this phase. And so when you run into people, however, that all of a sudden you just start to feel it every time you call them or you talk to them, you just sense that they're waiting to say something that you could fix about yourself. And then I have to ask, who is this? I started looking back and going, where's the source? What is the source? Who is the source? And how is this helping me? And how am I to trust the source? How has this person ever helped themselves? Where are they going in life? And is there anything about their life that can attribute to where I've been? Other than the company. Sometimes that misery loves company. You want to go to people that are going to make you feel better about your judgment or your choices, and that the judgment that they're going to give you are the ones that you want, so that you feel empowered by it all, thinking that you're in the right, even though deep inside you know that you could have done something different. And I remember always having arguments with my husband in the very beginning of our years and in the years to come, because I've always been the person who was taught to object whenever I felt the time to. And the one thing I never would really do is call my parents, because I knew they would give me what I wanted to hear. It was not what I needed to hear. And so it was a moment for me to grow. What I would do, I remember going to this place that I volunteered at, and it was interesting because the ladies that would told me stories helped me to grow so much in the relationship. And just that moment of the stories they told me, and I know I would not have gotten that from my own mother. God bless her. Just knowing that sometimes you have to go to people who have gone through struggles of just life, and then how they got over it, and that what I was going through was not as hard. Because when you hear other people's stories, you're just like, whoa, wow, just that overcoming is inspiring. And I know that these stories, or that what I share with you, that's what I hope for as well. And that, really thinking about that resurrection in this article, sometimes that's the best thing about when you feel like you've died because you have had to bury your old self. I realized the biggest moment I could feed people strength is when they saw me rise. When they saw that it was like, wow, all those many times that you could have been taken down, look at you now. And it wasn't to prove to anyone anything. It's just that now I feel like I did that, and without even realizing how many people I strengthened through my own strengths, that I was able to then gain from burying my old self. And when I say bury my old self, anyone who's ever gone through it knows it's not about you letting go of everything who you were. It's about burying what doesn't. It's like, when the fig tree was imprecated, all of a sudden it's like, what? You have a chance to then come out of that and become this new tree. It doesn't mean that you become an orange tree or a walnut tree, an olive tree. You still could be that fig tree, but you're this new, renewed fig tree. And then all of a sudden it's like, watch me blossom. Watch me do what I was supposed to do the first time. And that is that amazing feeling. And that is what I want to empower everyone in this message, is that when you get to live again with those now having been strengthened by seeing you rise, it's like, watch more what I've got, and just keep your eyes open and smile with me, because we're going to be better in this world together. And I'm so glad that I led the way of having you see me rise, because look, if I can do it, then you can too. And So that is resurrection for me. And that is what I gain, is that there is more work to be done. The moment you get resurrected, that is a time to go. I'm better, I'm stronger, and watch me go some more. Yeah. So, in the words of my mother, God bless us all. I continue to thank you so much for listening in, and hopefully always feeling empowered and really inspired by my words, because I want you to know that no matter the day, you are being strengthened, and you just watch yourself go and know that other people are thanking you for your strength. So keep rising. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you again for listening.